my fellow Americans. A short time ago, I ordered the United States Armed Forces to launch precision strikes on targets associated with the chemical weapons capabilities of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. A combined operation with the armed forces of France and the United Kingdom is now underway. We thank them both. Tonight, I want to speak with you about why we have taken this action. 1 year ago, Assad launched a savage chemical weapons attack against his own innocent people. The United States responded with 58 missile strikes that destroyed 20% of the Syrian Air Force. Last Saturday, the Assad regime again deployed chemical weapons to slaughter innocent civilians, this time in the town of Douma, near the Syrian capital of Damascus. This massacre was a significant escalation in a pattern of chemical weapons use by that very terrible regime. The evil and the despicable attack left mothers and fathers, infants and children thrashing in pain and gasping for air. These are not the actions of a man. They are crimes of a monster instead. Following the horrors of World War I a century ago, civilized nations joined together to ban chemical warfare. Chemical weapons are uniquely dangerous, not only because they inflict gruesome suffering, but because even small amounts can unleash widespread devastation. The purpose of our actions tonight is to establish a strong deterrent against the production, spread, and use of chemical weapons. Establishing this deterrent is a vital national security interest of the United States. The combined American, British, and French response to these atrocities will integrate all instruments of our national power, military, economic, and diplomatic. We are prepared to sustain this response until the Syrian regime stops its use of prohibited chemical agents. I also have a message tonight for the two governments most responsible for supporting, equipping, and financing the criminal Assad regime. To Iran and to Russia, I ask, what kind of a nation wants to be associated with the mass murder of innocent men, women, and children? The nations of the world can be judged by the friends they keep. No nation can succeed in the long run by promoting rogue states, brutal tyrants, and murderous dictators. In 2013, President Putin and his government promised the world that they would guarantee the elimination of Syria's chemical weapons. Assad's recent attack and today's response are the direct result of Russia's failure to keep that promise. Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace. Hopefully, someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not. I will say this. The United States has a lot to offer. With the greatest and most powerful economy in the history of the world. In Syria, the United States, with but a small force being used to eliminate what is left of ISIS, is doing what is necessary to protect the American people. Over the last year, nearly 100% of the territory once controlled by the so-called ISIS Caliphate in Syria and Iraq has been liberated and eliminated. The United States has also rebuilt our friendships across the Middle East. we have asked our partners to take greater responsibility for securing their home region, including contributing large amounts of money for the resources, equipment, and all of the anti-ISIS effort. Increased engagement from our friends, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, and others, can ensure that Iran does not profit from the eradication of ISIS. America does not seek an indefinite presence in Syria under no circumstances. As other nations step up their contributions, we look forward to the day when we can bring our warriors home, and great warriors they are. Looking around our very troubled world, Americans have no illusions. We cannot purge the world of evil or act everywhere there is tyranny. No amount of American blood or treasure can produce lasting peace and security in the Middle East. It's a troubled place. We will try to make it better, but it is a troubled place. The United States will be a partner and a friend, but the fate of the region lies in the hands of its own people. In the last century, we looked straight into the darkest places of the human soul. We saw the anguish that can be unleashed and the evil that can take hold. By the end of World War I, more than 1 million people had been killed or injured by chemical weapons. We never want to see that ghastly specter return. So today, the nations of Britain, France, and the United States of America have marshaled their righteous power against barbarism and brutality. Tonight, I ask all Americans to say a prayer for our noble warriors and our allies as they carry out their missions. We pray that God will bring comfort to those suffering in Syria. We pray that God will guide the whole region toward a future of dignity and of peace. And we pray that God will continue to watch over and bless the United States of America. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
President Trump addressing the nation tonight, revealing to the nation we have now launched precision strikes on Syria aimed at their chemical weapons. He revealed this is a combined operation of both the U.S., the U.K., and France. He'd been communicating with leaders of both countries throughout the week. He talked about President Assad in Syria, saying these are the crimes of a monster, describing the mothers, the children, the parents we saw in those images gasping for air. I want to bring in our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, who's been monitoring this all week. And now the president's speech tonight. Martha, what kind of strike is underway at this hour? And he's revealed that he's working with allies both from the UK and from France tonight.
He certainly is, and there are warplanes in the area and warships as well. The words he used were they would go after chemical weapons capabilities. And I think that could be anything from airfields to aircraft. They believe these chemical weapons were delivered from barrel bombs from helicopters, so they will certainly go after something like that. But one of the things we've all been watching, David, this week is how strong an impact it will have. Last year, they did bomb that airfield, and within days, it was working once again. There were airplanes launched. So what they went after tonight, we don't know yet. The Pentagon will have a press briefing in about 45 minutes and fill us in on exactly what was hit and how strong an impact they think it will have. One of the things that Secretary Mattis said just yesterday, it gives you some idea of what their concerns were, is he said, we are concerned that we don't add any civilian deaths. We're trying to stop the murder of innocent people, but on a strategic level, it's how do we keep this from escalating out of control? And that has been a real concern of Secretary Mattis. He does not want this to escalate. He does not want it to go beyond the borders.
And Martha, as you point out, chemical weapons capabilities. So let's bring in Steve Ganyard tonight, who's also watching this unfold with us, retired Colonel Ganyard. What kind of strike do you think is taking place? And will this be a precision strike in one specific location? Or do you gather, given that he talked about chemical weapons capabilities, that this could be multiple sites we're looking at tonight?
David, this was a coordinated cruise missile attack from the sea and the air by U.S., French, and British forces against numerous targets within Syria.
Numerous targets. How many do you believe, and what kinds of targets?
Well, we'll wait on details from the Pentagon, David, but as Martha noted, right at the top of the list will be chemical weapons storage facilities. But we also know that the president asked for a broader set of targets this time. He wants to deal a crippling blow to the Assad regime. So we may see infrastructure, but we'll also see military command and control, intelligence headquarters. And David, if you look out there to the east of Damascus at Dumair Air Base, that is where intelligence estimates are that the attack on Douma was launched from. And so that airfield likely will also be on the list of targets tonight.
But Colonel Ganyard, you heard the president talk about the U.S. strike just about a year ago. Martha pointed out that the airstrip was being used literally within days of that strike. Do you gather that the strike this time around, or series of strikes, will be far more potent?
I think it will have to be, David. The president said he needs to make a statement, and the statement we made last time was nothing more than a warning. I think this time what's interesting, if you note these rings on the map here, these are rings that represent the maximum effective range of two very sophisticated Russian surface-to-air missile systems that military planners are having to try to avoid. They don't know if the Russians are going to try and shoot down the Allied cruise missiles in flight. And so the military planners have had to fly those missiles low through the mountains of Lebanon to get to their targets in Damascus, literally flying under the radar.
Yeah, we simply do not know at this hour if the Russians will take any countermeasures, though they had threatened to do so earlier in the week. I want to bring in our senior foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell. He's with us tonight from London. And Ian, you heard President Trump there single out both Russia and Iran, but in particular Vladimir Putin. He talked about how it was Russia's responsibility to guarantee that those chemical weapons would not be used any longer in Syria. And yet we witnessed this attack in just the last week.
Yeah, and let's not forget, of course, when President Obama drew his red line, it was Russia that acted as a guarantor for the decommissioning of chemical weapons by Syria, and the accusation tonight is that it didn't hold true to its word. However, there did seem to be something of an olive branch to Iran and also to Russia. It wasn't quite as hardline as some of the tweets that we saw earlier. Talking of tweets, we're certainly seeing early signs of people reporting sounds of explosions around different parts of Damascus and other parts of the country. This evening, none of that is verified at the moment, but as Colonel Ganyard suggested, this is going to be a bigger attack, a bigger strike than we saw 1 year ago. I mean, it has to be if they're going to try and achieve their objective.
Likely a larger attack than a year ago. Ian Pannell, our thanks to you. I want to bring in Cecilia Vega because, Cecilia, as you know, you've been at the White House all week. It was earlier this week President Trump sent out that tweet saying missiles were coming, to be ready, that they'd be nice, new, smart. He was criticized for telegraphing to the world what was coming when he said so often during the campaign that he would never do that. There seemed to be a bit of a slowdown as the week progressed, as he began talking with Secretary Mattis and other members of his top security team there in the White House.
Yeah, and he was so roundly criticized, David, for doing exactly what he said he would never do, which is broadcasting his military plans. And as you said, exactly sort of seemed to dial that back. Early on in the week, the president said a decision would be 24 to 48 hours. We are now days from that. Finally, this decision made. A number of people watching to see whether he would take a hard line with Putin, as he did over Twitter again this week, naming him for the first time by name, calling him out in his relationship with Syria's Bashar al-Assad. But I've got to tell you, David, you know, all of this, of course, has been front and center for this White House, but it comes very much with so many distractions what they are dealing with right now. This major fight brewing between the president and his former FBI director, James Comey. It's hard to, it has been hard, I think, for them to concentrate and focus on Syria with all of that going on in the background.
And yet those strikes have been launched tonight as the president balances all of this. Cecilia, our thanks to you as well. Again, President Trump addressing the nation just a short time ago, revealing to the country that we have launched precision strikes against Syria aimed at decimating their chemical weapons capabilities. It's believed that these strikes will be much stronger than the strikes just about a year ago. We will wait to see what unfolds tonight. No reaction from Russia as of yet, but the president did reveal this is the work of not only the U.S. military, but the UK and France, two of our strongest allies, at work tonight in the skies over Syria. I'm David Muir reporting from the region here in Beirut. We will have continuing developments online. And for those of you watching in the West tonight, a special edition of World News Tonight coming up shortly. For the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm David Muir. Good night.
This has been a special report from ABC News.